knew what it was, right? So when I came out of that and I came into contact with Christ and I came into the truth of the word, and the Father drew me back to him, or drew me to him, like there's this passion I had where I was like, I don't want to deal with anything from the world that is with the kingdom of darkness. So I shut everything off and I was like, all right, Father, show me everything, right? So all of that being said, I'm gonna explain some of the aspects as far as like how the sacred geometry works, the what he was talking about with this Fibonacci numbers and different things like that, and even how that connects to the first video we watched where he talked about like these computer codes, quote unquote, embedded in these mathematical equations, right? So we know from lessons a couple of weeks ago, we talked about how Satan is able to speak to us by the spirit of the Antichrist through his ministers, right? Through his agents that are in the earth. The same way that the Father sends prophets, teachers, and raises people up to kind of break things down and things along those lines, right? We know that it's a war between the kingdom of heaven and the kingdom of darkness, right? So this war is happening between the kingdom of heaven and the kingdom of darkness, and each kingdom has their agents and they have the people who are doing what they need to do, right? But this is a significant thing. So the Most High designed this earth, right? This dimension that we live in with our flesh, our physical aspects, for mankind to dwell in. So he created the earth, he created the garden, he placed us in it and said, have dominion over the earth and everything in it, right? So we're supposed to be here as he is over everything, right? And that authority and that dominion. Now what happens is, because of what happened in the Garden of Eden and that separation and everything like that, right? There's a connection and a partnership that has to be there between the Father and his children on this earth, right? So we're in tune with them through the blood of Christ, right? And then we're endued with power from his Holy Spirit, and we can expand his kingdom and we can operate in this earth, bringing the kingdom of heaven to this earth and manifesting it, right? But the Father partners with us as people and does that through us. Satan understands that spiritual principle as far as how the Father designed us to operate in this earth. So Satan understands and understood from the beginning that in order for him to accomplish his desire against the Most High, he needed to use individuals as well. So when we're talking about Genesis chapter 3, verse 5, we have to understand that Satan's whole entire goal here was to create a situation in where he could connect with mankind the same way that the Father connects with mankind. So that way, instead of the Most High establishing his purpose and his kingdom, how he originally intended, Satan could do that according to his desire and his hatred for the Most High, if that makes sense. So when he says, then your eyes shall be open and ye shall be as gods, knowing good and evil, what Satan was ultimately trying to open them up to, he was trying to give them a certain perception and understanding and awareness of reality so that he could begin interacting with them and dealing with them in a way that he could continue to advance his agenda, if that makes sense. All right, so what does all of this mean? I know I just said a lot, right? And my prayer is that the Father will really open your eyes to see and give you and help us understand what I'm explaining, all right? So when it comes down to this aspect of like really perceiving and understanding how the kingdom of darkness is operating, that's where it connects to these videos, right? One thing I want you guys to notice is this video right here is 2011, right? And this video right here is 2013. In this video specifically, this brother said that he had been involved in this research for 5 or 6 years. So 2011, that means he had been involved in this for about 2005, 2006, right? And he's not the only one who's been studying this stuff, but this is some of the times when they were actually starting to publish more as far as what they were doing and different things like that. So this was 10 years ago, and he's talking about some of these experiments they were trying to do then. Where do you think they are with it now, if that makes sense? But ultimately, this whole aspect as far as about what they're talking about when it comes to like these mathematical equations, when they're talking about these number sequences and different things like this, one thing we have to understand is we have to understand that all science really is mankind studying and trying to process and understand on a practical level what's happening in the spirit, right? So follow me when I'm saying this, right? what we don't understand is like a lot of individuals, sometimes people at the top, they know they are, they know that they are operating for Satan, and other individuals don't, right? Like think about the deception that Satan has over the earth, and this zeal for knowledge and different things like that, right? And by us becoming to understand the knowledge of good and evil and perceive, have these different perceptions, it created this curiosity. Well, now I know this, right? I know I'm naked. You know what I'm saying? So it puts this desire in mankind to want to know, right? We want to know this. We want to know why this. We want to know how this works. We want to know what happens if I do this. Like we become like children in the sense that we experiment with everything around us because we want to figure out how it all works. The thing with that is how God designed us is there's things that he was supposed to teach us, right? And that's why he's big on his commandments and stuff like that, because he's like, he was supposed to be our God. He was supposed to be our people. He was supposed to be our father. And like any father, any parent, you don't want someone else teaching your child anything. Like you want to be the one that's having these moments and teaching them. And because you know them, you know what they're able to understand, what they're able to handle, and what they're able to process. So you can grow them by stages to a place of maturity so that they can be who you desire them to be. Right? Satan kind of came in and accelerated that and created that disconnect. So now mankind was left here with these desires to know, right? But we were disconnected from the source, who was our Father, the Most High, who was supposed to lead us and guide us on these things. And so Satan began putting all of his stuff around to teach us what we weren't supposed to know, right? So that's where it talks about like that. But people, they'll use a term like the forbidden fruit, forbidden knowledge, and different things like that. Ultimately, there's a perception about how things work that we weren't supposed to perceive in that moment, in that season. Right? So all of that, I'm saying all of that to say this, when we start to look at how all of these different sciences and stuff work, the whole process of that is mankind trying to understand what's happening around us, right? The interesting thing is the Father has already showed us how all of this stuff works, right? It's in his word. He doesn't go into the depths and the details about it, but what he says is if you diligently seek him, like, right, it says he rewards those who diligently seek him. He reveals the hidden things and the secret things, right, to those who love him and different things like that. So there's these different questions and these different things we want to know that the Father himself will show us if we ask him as he sees fit, right? But there's a point of this yearning quest where some people are just digging, and it's like, so God will say, don't eat this, and this is, you know what I'm saying? And we want to know why. So science will do the research through the science, and then the science will finally confirm it 100 years later, but it's already in the word. It's already in the instructions. It's already in the wisdom of the Bible, right? So this whole concept as far as like why people are studying these different sciences and different things is because we're trying to make sense of the world apart from God. When you try to remove the Father from the equation, there's a whole bunch of questions that don't have answers, and that's how Satan wanted it. Because if we don't have those answers, then he can give us those answers, right? So what does he do? He raises people up, and ultimately he begins to teach them these higher levels of understanding, which is why like the kingdom of darkness, they're all about this enlightenment and different things like that, and having their eyes open and having this awakening and different things like that. But what they really don't understand is they're learning more and more aspects as far as how the kingdom of darkness is being advanced, because they're learning more about how the spirit, like how God designed everything. But the thing is like we're not supposed to have access to that knowledge, if that makes sense, right? So what does this look like in modern day society? Like so this Fibonacci numbers, all that shows is the perfection of God's design, right? Because the Father's the one who designed everything, right, and made it all. He gave it a perfect balance, right, from the position of the earth and the universe with all of the different stars and galaxies. All of that stuff is perfectly aligned so that life can be hosted on this earth, how the Father designed it, right? So these Fibonacci numbers, they show the perfection of the design that the Father did, and it shows how intentional he was with everything that he created, right? From the molecules and everything that makes us up in the physical, you know what I'm saying, to like the times of the seasons and seed time, harvest, and all of like everything the Bible talks about. This higher level aspects of mathematics and stuff like that. It just shows the perfection of that, right? But the question you not have to ask is, why is Satan after that knowledge, and why is he trying to deliver it to mankind? Why is he trying to break down the science of how God designed everything and deliver it to us? What is his ultimate goal? We know that the same way the Father desires to manifest the kingdom of heaven on the earth, Satan desires to manifest the kingdom of darkness. So he gives us this information as far as how things work, so that way he has access to us in this dimension or in this earth, the same way that the Father is able to have access to us, right? And so what does that look like? Because I know I just said a mouthful, so I want to bring it back, because I want to make sure I don't want to talk over anybody or anything like that. I want to make sure everyone's processing this, because this is the information that's going to help us really understand the depth of the warfare that believers in Christ are in. And it shows us why we need to be praying, why we need to be fasting, why we need to be adhering to the wisdom and the instructions of the Most High, so that way we can be witnesses and bearers of his light to counteract those who are bearing the light of Lucifer, if that makes sense, right? So when it comes down to how Satan uses this information or this knowledge in the earth to manifest his kingdom, it ultimately comes down to sorcery, right? It ultimately comes down to witchcraft. And so I'll explain it this way, and I'll keep it brief. I'm not going to go into the weeds of it, but so this is how witchcraft works, right? Like when I've been through a lot of different faiths, and I've been exposed to a lot of different things, right? You're talking about 5%er knowledge. You're talking about all these different consciousness movements and different things like that, right? They always talk about these supreme mathematics. They always talk about like they're really big on this math and stuff like that. These demonic organizations are really big on math, right? And this is why, because Satan understands that there is certain calculations that you can do that opens up spiritual portals. All right, so follow what I'm saying. And like just, if you've never heard information like this before, my prayer is that you would just be patient and just hear it out, right? The man said in the first video that he found embedded in some of these equations were the equivalent of codes that we use to program computers, right? And the second video, it talked about the depth of these Fibonacci numbers and that level of mathematics, right? Understand that the scriptures teach us that the Most High is spirit. And it says, those who worship me must worship in spirit and truth. So before the physical was created, the spiritual was created. And understand that all of that, was connecting all of that, is these different mathematical sequences that the Most High himself put in place to structure everything together, right? Satan manipulates that to create these different access points, so that way he can bring his kingdom to this earth. So this is why when we start talking about different faith systems like meditation, right? This is why the Father says there's ways that the other nations worship him that he tells us that he hates, that he doesn't want us to do, right? So this is, so you're talking about meditation, right? You're talking about chakras. You're talking about burning certain incense. You're talking about different acupunctures and different pressure points and different things like that. The root of all of that is different mathematical equations at the core. So when these other faith systems tell you when you meditate, you should hold your fingers a certain kind of way, right? The science behind their faith is there's certain pressure points. There's certain, the easiest way I can explain it, there's certain equations that you're doing when you do this stuff that opens up access and you begin to channel these spirits, right? It's like a Ouija board. Ouija boards are designed in a certain way that they create this point of access between you, that board, and the spiritual world. You know what I'm saying? When you're talking about, even when it goes down to the depths of gangs, right? A lot of people don't know. Man, there's a movie there's a movie I saw before Christ. I think it's Ong Bak 3, right? And there's this the guy had gotten hurt, and there's a way he's trying to heal himself, but he's doing his hands a certain kind of way, right? And if you ever go back and study, I think the Native Americans used to do it too, but it's called transfiguration. So in Kung Fu, you'll see them like doing these different poses. You see the same poses in yoga, you see the same poses in Hindu, and there's ways that they do poses with their hands, and you see gang members do it, but in gangs they call it stacking. Right. So in gangbanging, when you have different signs with your hands and you're stacking and different things like that, all of that is the same thing, but in different formats, right? Like Satan has this thing all throughout the earth, because when people are doing this stuff without realizing it, what they're doing is they're opening themselves up to be in connection with the kingdom of darkness. That's where the scripture starts talking about sorcery. A lot of people, I know we use the word pharmakia, and sometimes we get too big just on like the pharmaceuticals and stuff like that. But sorcery, that's all drugs, right? That's marijuana, that's cocaine, that's strong drink, right? They call strong drink spirits and stuff like that. Like the whole purpose of all of that it's just ultimately is high level sorcery. And what Satan is doing is he's using all of this information, right, and giving this stuff to mankind, so that way he can do his will and accomplish his agenda in the earth, right? So now that I've explained all of that, how does that explain to the overall topic of tonight's lesson as far as ye shall be as gods, right? We know that Satan desires to sit on the throne of everyone's heart instead of the Most High, right? Satan wants to replace the Most High in our hearts and be on the throne of our heart, where we worship him and serve him. The foundation of any belief that Satan has designed is self at the core. It's about me, myself, and I, right? That's the image of Satan. It's all about me, right? The way Satan has structured this earth through all of this technology is we've gotten so consumed to the point where we forget the reality of the world we live in, right? Like the only thing that separates us in modern society from people 300 years ago is the level of technology, right? Electricity, being able to go to the store, computers, phones, turning on this running water. Like the biggest thing that separates us is like these different aspects of technology. And the thing is, so much technology surrounds us, it creates a level of comfort that really it's like a false reality if you think about it. So when the guy was talking about this aspect of the Matrix, not going in depths of how the movie really is, where they're living in a computer generation simulation, like I'm not talking about that aspect. I'm just saying like the reality of life is a lot different when you take all of this stuff away, right? But because we have all this stuff, it creates a level of security. It creates a level of comfort where we can just blow through life without fully understanding the weight of the severity of how life is, right? Like, I don't know how to describe it too deep, but you know, it's kind of like that equivalent of like when someone they lose everything, they lose their house fire or whatever, they just lose everything. They're exposed to the raw reality of what life is, right? If someone gets incarcerated and they lose all of these luxuries, they're encountered with the raw reality of what life is, right? But Satan has these things around us to keep us blinded so we don't see the raw reality. Like if all of this stuff was removed, a lot of believers would probably be living a lot different, because these comforts, like you would have to depend on the Most High a lot more. Like if you still had to hunt your food and grow your food and really depend on him to send rain and stuff like that, that level of intimacy with him would be a lot different. But Satan has put this stuff around us so we don't depend on the Most High. We become self-sufficient, right? But this is significant because as we get closer to the time of him rolling out the mark of the beast, the thing that's going to create a lot of people's buy-in when they receive it is that ability to indulge in self, right? And I'm sharing that to explain it this way. Look at how Satan is designing all of the technology that is surrounding you. Like, don't look at everybody else. Think about you personally, right? And if some of this stuff doesn't fit your life personally, then you can look at the world around you and see how does it fit, right? But you have like this Amazon Smile, right? You have these phones. You can open up the phone with your face, right? You have this. You got this. How am I explaining it? You can talk to your phone and ask it to do this. You can talk to your house and say, hey, turn on this, turn on that. Like, I'm explaining it where it's like a level of control where you don't really have to physically engage with certain things anymore, but just by speaking certain things, right? Or just by like issuing commands and stuff like that through this technology, you're able to kind of in a way function as like a little god, if that makes sense. And the whole intent and psychological design behind that is to create a certain mindset in the individual that is ripe to receive that mindset and to buy into that system that is coming, to where people live like that and are okay with it, if that makes sense. So